Marcus had only one delivery left before his shift ended, when a desperate scream shattered the peaceful afternoon at the luxury resort. He turned toward the private pool just in time to see a beautifully dressed woman disappear beneath the crystal blue water. Wealthy guests stood frozen in shock. Some shouted for help. Others reached for their phones. Not a single person jumped in. Without thinking twice, Marcus dropped his insulated delivery bag and sprinted toward the pool. He kicked off his shoes and dived into the deep end. The woman had already sunk several feet beneath the surface. Marcus reached her just in time, wrapped one arm around her waist, and pushed both of them upward with every ounce of strength he had. The moment they broke through the surface, frightened voices erupted around the pool. "Over here. Help him. Call an ambulance." Marcus ignored every distraction. He pulled the unconscious woman onto the pool deck and immediately checked for breathing. She wasn't breathing. His heart pounded. Years earlier, a community emergency response volunteer had taught him CPR during a free first aid workshop. He had prayed he would never need those lessons. Now they were all he had. He locked his trembling hands together and began chest compressions. "Come on, please." 30 compressions. 2 rescue breaths. Again. Again. The crowd held its breath. Then suddenly, the woman coughed violently. Water rushed from her lungs as she gasped for air. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open. The first face she saw was Marcus's. For several silent seconds, neither of them spoke. There was no pride on his face, no excitement, no expectation of praise. Only relief. She stared into his eyes, as if trying to understand why a complete stranger had risked everything to save her life. What Marcus didn't know was that the woman lying before him was Victoria Lawson, the billionaire CEO of one of the largest logistics companies in the country. And what Victoria didn't know was that the poor delivery guy kneeling beside her was about to change her life forever. Marcus's soaked uniform clung to his body as hotel staff rushed toward them with towels and first aid equipment. A lifeguard, who had been responding to another emergency at a nearby section of the resort, finally arrived and quickly took over Victoria's care. Within moments, paramedics entered through the private gate. Marcus quietly stepped back. One of the hotel managers noticed the bright red delivery bag lying near the pool. "Sir, was that yours?" Marcus nodded. I still have a customer's order inside." The manager looked at him in disbelief. "You just saved someone's life, and you're worried about a delivery." Marcus gave an embarrassed smile. "If I don't finish my deliveries, I might lose today's pay." Before anyone could reply, several black SUVs sped into the resort. Men in dark suits stepped out, scanning every corner of the pool area. Victoria's security team had arrived. A middle-aged man rushed straight to her side. "Miss Lawson." She was conscious now, though still weak. "I'm all right," she whispered. The security chief's eyes moved around the pool until someone quietly pointed toward Marcus. "He's the man who saved her." The chief walked over. "Sir, our CEO would like to thank you." Marcus glanced at the time on his phone. "I wish I could stay, but I'm already running late." The security chief blinked. "You don't even know who she is, do you?" Marcus shook his head. "No." The answer stunned everyone standing nearby. He wasn't pretending. He genuinely had no idea. "I just saw someone drowning." He picked up his soaked delivery bag, slipped on his wet shoes, and smiled politely. "I'm glad she's going to be okay." Without waiting for applause or recognition, Marcus climbed onto his old motorcycle and slowly rode away. Victoria watched him disappear through the resort gates. Something about him felt different. Every wealthy man she had ever met wanted access to her fortune, influence, or family name. Yet the one man who had just saved her life hadn't even asked for her name. He hadn't taken a photo. He hadn't requested a reward. He hadn't stayed long enough to receive a simple thank you. For the first time in many years, Victoria found herself smiling, not because she had survived, but because she had met someone whose kindness couldn't be bought. As the ambulance doors closed, she looked at her security chief. "I want you to find him." "Yes, Miss Lawson." "But listen carefully." "Yes." "I don't want him pressured." "What do you mean?" "When you find him, don't tell him who I am." The chief looked surprised. "You want me to keep your identity secret?" Victoria nodded softly as she looked toward the gate where Marcus had disappeared. "I want to know who he really is before he knows who I am." Marcus had barely ridden 5 kilometers from the luxury resort before his phone rang. It was his supervisor. "Marcus, where are you? That last delivery should have been completed 20 minutes ago." "I'm on my way, sir." "You'd better have a good explanation." Marcus looked at his soaked clothes and sighed. "I do." Unfortunately, no explanation would be enough. By the time he reached the customer's office, the food was cold. The customer angrily refused the order and demanded a refund. Marcus apologized repeatedly, accepting the criticism without mentioning that he had been saving a stranger's life instead of making excuses. Back at the delivery company, his manager, Mr. Collins, was waiting. "This is the 3rd late delivery this month." Marcus tried to explain. "There was an emergency at the resort. A woman fell into the pool. She wasn't breathing." Mr. Collins folded his arms. "And you expect me to believe that?" "It's the truth. The customer doesn't pay us for heroic stories. They pay us for punctual deliveries." Marcus lowered his head. "I understand." Mr. Collins handed him an envelope. "I'm sorry, Marcus. You're a hardworking young man, but business is business." Marcus stared silently at the termination letter. After nearly 4 years with the company, he had lost his job in less than 2 minutes. He thanked his manager anyway. As he walked outside carrying only his helmet and empty delivery bag, he forced himself to smile. His mother still needed her medication. His younger sister's college tuition was due next month. Giving up wasn't an option. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria Lawson lay in a private hospital suite while doctors completed a series of examinations. "The CT scan is clear," one physician said. "You suffered a mild concussion, but thanks to the quick rescue and immediate CPR, you'll make a full recovery." Victoria looked out the window. If he had arrived 30 seconds later? The doctor hesitated. The outcome might have been very different. She closed her eyes, replaying the moment she had opened them beside the pool. She could still see Marcus's face. Not because he was handsome, although he certainly was, but because there had been something incredibly genuine in his expression. No greed. No fear. No expectation. Just kindness. Her security chief entered the room. "We've identified him." Victoria immediately sat up. "What did you find?" "His name is Marcus Reed, 27 years old, delivery driver, lives with his widowed mother and younger sister in a modest apartment." "Any criminal record?" "None." "Debt?" "Only educational loans. He dropped out of college after his father passed away." Victoria listened quietly. "He has also volunteered at a neighborhood youth center every Saturday for the past 3 years." She looked surprised. "He volunteers?" "Yes, mostly teaching teenagers basic bicycle repairs and helping with community food drives." Victoria smiled. "So that's who he really is." The chief nodded. "There's something else." "What?" "He was fired this afternoon." Victoria's smile disappeared. "Why?" "He was late completing a delivery." Her eyes widened. "Late because he saved me." "Yes." Silence filled the room. For the first time in years, Victoria felt something stronger than gratitude. She felt responsible. "No." She shook her head firmly. He lost his livelihood because he chose to save a human life. The security chief waited. What would you like me to do? Victoria looked toward the evening skyline. I don't want him handed money. She paused. That would insult the kind of man he is. What then? She smiled thoughtfully. Arrange a meeting. You want him brought here? No. She laughed softly. I'll go to him. The chief raised an eyebrow. Personally? Yes. She looked once more at the photograph her team had taken from Marcus's employee records. I want to thank the man who saw a drowning stranger before he ever saw a billionaire. As night fell over the city, neither Marcus nor Victoria realized that fate was quietly preparing to bring them together once again. This time, not as a rescuer and a victim, but as two people from completely different worlds whose lives had become forever intertwined. Marcus woke before sunrise, though there was nowhere he needed to be. For the first time in nearly 4 years, he had no deliveries waiting, no routes to plan, and no supervisor calling to rush him out the door. The silence felt strange. He quietly prepared breakfast for his mother and younger sister before slipping out to search for another job. By noon, he had visited 6 businesses. Every answer was the same. We're not hearing. Leave your resume. We'll call you if something opens up. No one called. Meanwhile, a sleek black sedan pulled into the parking lot of the delivery company where Marcus had worked. Employees stopped what they were doing as Victoria Lawson stepped out, dressed elegantly in a navy blue business suit. Though still recovering from the accident, she insisted on making the visit herself. Her security team remained several steps behind. Mr. Collins hurried outside, confused. Good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome. How may we help you? Victoria smiled politely. I'm looking for one of your employees, Marcus Reed. The manager's expression changed immediately. I'm afraid you're too late. What do you mean? He doesn't work here anymore. Victoria's heart sank. Why not? We dismissed him yesterday. For saving my life. Mr. Collins froze. Your life. Victoria looked directly into his eyes. The woman Marcus pulled from the swimming pool yesterday was me. The manager's face turned pale. He suddenly understood everything. He wasn't making it up. No. He really rescued someone. He rescued me. The employees inside the office gradually gathered near the entrance, listening in stunned silence. Victoria continued calmly. The doctors told me that without Marcus's immediate CPR, I might not be alive today. Mr. Collins looked overwhelmed with regret. I had no idea. I believe you. Victoria wasn't angry. But perhaps next time, before judging someone's character, you'll ask a few more questions. The manager lowered his head. I owe him an apology. So do I, Victoria replied softly, because he lost his job for choosing compassion over convenience. Just then, one of the employees spoke up. I know where Marcus usually goes after interviews. Victoria turned toward him. Please tell me. Less than an hour later, her driver stopped outside a modest neighborhood park. Marcus sat alone on a wooden bench, reading job advertisements on his phone. He looked up as the luxury sedan approached. When Victoria stepped out, recognition flashed across his face. You. She smiled warmly. We finally meet properly. Marcus immediately stood. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Because of you. He shook his head. I just did what anyone should do. Victoria laughed softly. I've learned that not everyone would. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marcus noticed the small bandage near her hairline. Does your head still hurt? A little. I'm sorry. She blinked. You're apologizing. If I'd reached you sooner, maybe you wouldn't have hit the edge of the pool. Victoria couldn't help smiling. Even now, He was blaming himself instead of expecting praise. She had never met anyone like him. "I came to thank you," she said. "You don't have to." "I do." She extended a neatly wrapped box. Marcus accepted it carefully. Inside was a simple wristwatch, engraved with 4 words. "Thank you for saving me." Nothing extravagant. Nothing that would make him uncomfortable. "It means more than you know," Victoria said. Marcus looked genuinely touched. "I'll treasure it." She took a slow breath. "There's something else." He waited. "I've learned that you lost your job because of what happened yesterday." Marcus smiled faintly. "I'll find another one." "I know you will." She paused before continuing. "My company is expanding its logistics division." Marcus looked at her curiously. "I'd like to offer you a position." His smile disappeared. "A job?" "Yes." Marcus shook his head almost immediately. "I appreciate it, but I don't want charity." Victoria had expected that answer. "This isn't charity." "What is it then?" "A chance." She looked him directly in the eyes. "You earned my respect before either of us knew who the other was." Marcus remained silent. "You'll begin at an entry-level position," she continued. "The same standards will apply to you as everyone else. If you succeed, every promotion will be because you deserve it. And if I fail, you'll leave with your dignity." Marcus thought for a long moment. Finally, he extended his hand. "Then I'll earn every step." Victoria smiled as she shook it. "I was hoping you'd say that." Neither of them noticed the photographer across the street. His camera clicked several times. By the following morning, one photograph would appear online with a headline that neither Marcus nor Victoria saw coming. "Mysterious billionaire CEO seen meeting delivery man who saved her life." The picture would ignite public curiosity and become the beginning of a story that would soon capture the attention of the entire country. The photograph spread across social media before sunrise. By the time Marcus arrived at Lawson Global Logistics for his first day, thousands of people had already seen the image of him shaking hands with Victoria in the neighborhood park. The headlines were impossible to ignore. "Billionaire CEO hires the delivery driver who saved her life." Hero or lucky opportunist? Some praised Marcus for his courage. Others claimed he had staged the rescue to change his life. Marcus ignored the comments. He had accepted the job to earn an honest living, not to become the center of public attention. As he entered the towering headquarters of Lawson Global Logistics, he felt completely out of place. Employees in tailored suits hurried through the marble lobby, while digital screens displayed the company's latest global expansion projects. Marcus glanced down at his neatly pressed but inexpensive shirt. He reminded himself why he was there. To work. Nothing more. A human resources officer greeted him and handed him an employee identification badge. "Welcome to Lawson Global." "Thank you." She smiled warmly. "Miss Lawson instructed us to treat you exactly like every other new employee." Marcus nodded. "I wouldn't want it any other way." His first assignment was surprisingly ordinary. Instead of an executive office, he was placed in the operations department, where delivery schedules, warehouse inventories, and transportation routes were coordinated. The work felt familiar. Within days, Marcus began suggesting small improvements to delivery routes that reduced fuel costs and shortened delivery times. His supervisor noticed. "So, you figured this out on your own?" Marcus smiled. 4 years of making deliveries teaches you where time gets wasted. His practical experience impressed everyone on the team. Everyone except one person. Daniel Brooks, Victoria's former fiancé. Daniel had expected to marry one of the wealthiest women in the country before their relationship ended nearly a year earlier. Although no longer engaged to Victoria, He remained a shareholder in Lawson Global and still attended many board meetings. When he saw Marcus walking through company headquarters, he frowned. So that's him. One executive nodded. The delivery driver. Daniel smirked. A man like that doesn't belong here. Later that afternoon, Daniel walked into Victoria's office without knocking. So, Victoria looked up from her documents. I wondered how long it would take you to visit. Daniel folded his arms. You hired him? Yes. Because he saved your life. Because he earned an opportunity. Daniel laughed. Or because you've become emotionally attached. Victoria calmly closed the file she was reading. Be careful, Daniel. I'm simply stating facts. No. She stood. You're making assumptions. Daniel stepped closer. You've built a billion-dollar company. Don't throw away your reputation over a delivery driver. Victoria's expression never changed. My reputation was built by judging people on character. And you think he has character? I know he does. Daniel shook his head. People like Marcus always want something. Victoria smiled faintly. That's interesting. What is? The only person who has asked me for anything since the accident is you. Daniel had no answer. He turned and left the office without another word. Meanwhile, Marcus had no idea the conversation had taken place. He spent the rest of the afternoon helping a new employee understand the warehouse software, even though it wasn't part of his responsibilities. One of the senior managers noticed. Why are you helping him? Marcus shrugged. Because someone helped me when I started delivering packages. Word about Marcus's attitude spread quickly throughout the company. He never complained. Never acted entitled. Never mentioned that the CEO herself had hired him. To most employees, he was simply another hardworking colleague. Late that evening, Victoria walked through the nearly empty operations floor before heading home. She noticed a light still on. Marcus sat alone, studying logistics reports with a notebook open beside him. You haven't gone home yet, she said. Marcus looked up, slightly embarrassed. I'm trying to understand the company's distribution system. You could study tomorrow. I could. So why stay? He smiled. Because if I'm going to succeed here, I want it to be because I earned it. Victoria watched him quietly. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't expected after a chance encounter at a swimming pool. Admiration. It was growing into something much deeper. But outside the building, someone sat in a parked car with a camera aimed at the office windows. Daniel wasn't ready to give up. If Marcus truly intended to become part of Victoria's life, Daniel was determined to prove that the poor delivery driver didn't belong in her world, even if he had to create the evidence himself. The following week began with an atmosphere Marcus couldn't quite explain. People who had greeted him warmly suddenly became distant. Conversations stopped whenever he entered a room. A few employees glanced at him before quickly looking away. Marcus assumed they were simply busy. He had no idea that anonymous emails had been circulating throughout the company. The messages claimed Marcus had only accepted the job because he intended to win Victoria's affection and secure a luxurious future. No one knew who had sent them. But Daniel Brooks watched the rumors spread with quiet satisfaction. If his reputation falls, he muttered to himself, Victoria will eventually see him for what he really is. Unfortunately for Daniel, Marcus gave people no reason to believe the lies. He arrived early every morning. He stayed late whenever a project needed finishing. He treated executives and janitors with the same respect. Instead of asking for special treatment, he insisted on following company procedures. Gradually, many employees began questioning the anonymous accusations. They don't match the man we know, one supervisor remarked. Even so, Daniel refused to give up. A few days later, he arranged for Marcus to be assigned responsibility for reviewing delivery records from several regional warehouses. It seemed like routine administrative work. Marcus approached the task carefully. As he compared shipment logs with warehouse reports, something unusual caught his attention. Several expensive deliveries had been recorded as completed. Yet the corresponding inventory had never left the warehouses. He checked another week's records. The same pattern appeared. Then another. Marcus frowned. Either someone had made repeated accounting mistakes, or someone was stealing from the company. Not wanting to accuse anyone unfairly, he spent 2 more evenings reviewing hundreds of digital records. The discrepancies continued. He organized everything into a neat report before requesting a meeting with his department supervisor. The supervisor scanned the documents. "Are you certain about these figures?" "I checked them 3 times. The supervisor immediately forwarded the report to the company's internal audit department. Within 48 hours, auditors confirmed Marcus's findings. Millions of dollars worth of equipment had disappeared over several months through falsified transportation records. Victoria called an emergency meeting with the audit team, who had authorization over these shipments. One auditor projected a chart onto the screen. The approvals passed through several departments. Any common link? The room became quiet. Finally, the lead investigator spoke. "Yes." He pointed to one name. "Daniel Brooks." Victoria stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's impossible." "We thought so too." The investigator handed her several documents. "Mr. Brooks didn't authorize every shipment personally." "He didn't." "No. But every fraudulent transaction eventually required approval from companies under his financial supervision." Victoria slowly sat down. She wanted facts, not assumptions. "Continue the investigation," she said calmly. "No accusations until every document is verified." Meanwhile, Marcus remained completely unaware of what his report had uncovered. He simply believed he had done his job. Late that evening, Victoria found him organizing files in the operations office. "I heard you stayed late again." Marcus smiled. There was still work to finish. "You may have saved this company more than once." He looked confused. "I don't understand." "You noticed financial irregularities that experienced managers overlooked." Marcus shrugged modestly. "I was only comparing numbers." Victoria smiled. "That's exactly why you found them." For a moment, silence settled between them. Then Marcus spoke carefully. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really hire me?" Victoria looked out through the glass wall toward the city lights. "Because when I opened my eyes beside that swimming pool." She turned back to him. "I saw someone who valued a stranger's life more than his own comfort." Her voice softened. "I've spent years surrounded by people who admired my wealth." She held his gaze. "You were the first person in a very long time who cared nothing about it." Marcus didn't know what to say. He simply smiled. Neither of them noticed Daniel standing outside the office doorway. His expression hardened as he watched the conversation. The investigation was getting dangerously close to him. Marcus had unknowingly become the biggest threat to everything Daniel had been hiding. And Daniel was desperate enough to make one final move, one that would either destroy Marcus forever or expose the truth before the entire board of Lawson Global. The boardroom was unusually tense. Every director of Lawson Global Logistics had been summoned to an emergency meeting. Thick folders containing audit reports rested before each member, while the company's legal advisors stood quietly against the wall. Marcus had no idea why he had been asked to attend. He took a seat near the back of the room, feeling completely out of place among the executives. Daniel Brooks entered moments later, wearing his usual confident smile. He looked at Marcus with quiet satisfaction. "This should be interesting," he whispered. Victoria walked into the room precisely at 9 o'clock. "Good morning, everyone." The room fell silent. She nodded to the lead auditor. "You may begin." The auditor connected his laptop to the large display screen. "For the past several weeks, our team has investigated discrepancies in the company's logistics records after they were first identified by Mr. Marcus Reed." Several board members turned toward Marcus in surprise. The auditor continued. "Our investigation has uncovered a coordinated fraud scheme involving falsified shipment records, shell companies, and unauthorized payments totaling several $1 million. A series of financial documents appeared on the screen. Every transaction ultimately benefited businesses secretly controlled by one individual. The final slide displayed a single name: Daniel Brooks. The room erupted with shocked voices. Daniel shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. Those documents have been manipulated." The company's legal advisor calmly placed several signed contracts on the table. "They have not. We have verified every transaction with independent financial investigators." Daniel's confidence disappeared. Victoria looked at him sadly. "I gave you opportunities to be honest." "You've chosen him over me," Daniel shouted, pointing at Marcus. "No," Victoria replied calmly. "I chose the truth." Security officers entered the boardroom. Daniel realized there was no escape. As he was escorted away, he turned toward Marcus. "This is your fault." Marcus remained seated. "I never wanted to destroy you." "You destroyed yourself." The room became quiet once more. One of the senior directors stood. "Mr. Reed." Marcus looked up. "Your honesty has saved this company from enormous financial loss." Another director smiled. "You've also reminded us that integrity cannot be purchased." The board unanimously approved Victoria's recommendation to promote Marcus to Operations Development Manager, recognizing that his practical experience and unwavering character had already made the company stronger. Marcus accepted the promotion with humility. "I promise to earn your trust every single day." Months passed. Under Victoria's leadership and Marcus's operational improvements, Lawson Global became more efficient than ever. Employee training expanded, warehouse safety improved, and the company launched a scholarship program for delivery workers who wanted to continue their education. Marcus insisted the program honor everyday workers whose dedication often went unnoticed. One warm Saturday evening, Victoria invited Marcus back to the same luxury resort where their lives had first crossed paths. The swimming pool shimmered beneath the setting sun. For a few moments, they simply stood in silence. "It's strange," Victoria said softly. "I almost lost my life here." Marcus smiled. "And I almost lost my job." They both laughed. Then Victoria's expression grew serious. "When I opened my eyes that day, I thought you had simply saved my life." She stepped closer. "But you gave me something far more valuable." "What was that?" She looked into his eyes. "Faith that genuine kindness still exists." Marcus reached into his pocket. "I've been carrying something with me for weeks." He slowly knelt on one knee. It wasn't an extravagant moment, surrounded by cameras or reporters. It was quiet, sincere, real. "Victoria Lawson," he said, his voice steady, "you changed my life just as much as I changed yours. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes before she answered. "Yes." She laughed through her tears. 1,000 times, yes. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, the hotel guests who had witnessed the proposal broke into warm applause. Months later, they were married in a simple outdoor ceremony attended by family, close friends, and many of the delivery workers and warehouse employees Marcus had once worked alongside. Standing together, They announced the creation of the First Response Heroes Foundation, providing free CPR and water safety training in underserved communities. When reporters later asked Victoria why she had fallen in love with a poor delivery driver, she smiled and gave an answer that quickly spread across the country. "I didn't fall in love with his job or his bank account. I fell in love with the man who jumped into the water while everyone else stood and watched." And Marcus would always say that the greatest reward for saving one life was discovering the person with whom he wanted to spend the rest of his own.